getting into character creation, there's not really an optimal race. Some have some benefits over others. Gnomes are going to have advantage on a lot of their saving throws against spells, which is thematically good. Wood elves and half-wood elves have the extra movement speed that's always good, but really nothing is so critical that you need to pick it. So we're going to start out with fighter. I still like to take the defense fighting style. There is a little bit of an argument, believe it or not, to go archery for this, just for the +2, but overall I think the +1 AC is probably your best bet. So for stats, this is how I'm going to lay it out, and I'm going to say you do need the gloves of dexterity to make this work. The optimal way to play this would actually be to dump your strength, put your points into dexterity, and always use one of the strength potions. However, I know a lot of people don't love doing that, so I'm going to do it this way, but just so you know, if you're really trying to get the most out of this build possible, anything where I'm putting points into strength, switch it to dexterity, use the Hill Giant potion, Cloud Giant eventually. As for stats otherwise, 17 in the score of strength or dexterity that you intend to use, 16 in constitution, 10 in intelligence, you could switch that to charisma, and 14 in wisdom. You could switch the constitution and wisdom scores, but that's up to you. As for skills, I like to take athletics for shoving, and usually survival or perception, depending on what would be more useful to the rest of your party members. At level 2, we get action surge, which is incredible. Get to attack a bunch more times. Level 3, we're going to go right into Battle Master. So we get 4 superiority dice per short rest, which is pretty good. And we have 2 abilities that we for sure want to get. We absolutely want to pick up Menacing Attack, which deals a little extra damage and frightens the creature, possibly. We also want to get Trip Attack. These 2 are going to turn into a very nasty single target crowd control combo that we can pull off, which is particularly devastating to casters. The third maneuver is really up to your choice. There's plenty of fun ones. Like pushing attack can be good if you want to knock someone back, though admittedly you do have shove, but pushing attack would let you use your bonus action to jump to them. Precision attack, add some additional 2 hit to your weapon attack. I like evasive footwork. Disadvantage on melee attacks for a round can be quite good, particularly early. Disarming attack can also absolutely ruin some melee characters that are up against you, though. Level 4, we get our first feat. Now, you can absolutely go Great Weapon Master at this point if you'd like to. Personally, I like to pick up Athlete first. Put your skill point into whichever one you're maxing out. I really love the increased jump distance. It just allows for an incredible amount of mobility on your fighter. Level 5, we get extra attack. Pretty simple, pretty great. Level 6, we get another feat, and this is where I'm going to pick up Great Weapon Master. If you picked it up already, I do recommend Athlete. And level 7, I'm going to do something maybe a little weird. We're going to add a class, and it's going to be a beloved charisma caster despite our 8 charisma, which is Sorcerer. The reason for this is so that we can get access to the jump spell and a few other things. For cantrips, you want to make sure you're taking only things that don't care about your spell DC. Mage Hand is great. Light is incredible, particularly if your character doesn't have dark vision. You can have that running the whole time. I like to take Blade Ward early on if you get yourself in a sticky situation, using Evasive Footwork's maneuver for disadvantage on melee attacks, and Blade Ward can make you very, very tanky. And then it's kind of your pick. I know some people use True Strike from time to time. I find I never use it. Minor Illusion could group people up, but I think there is a saving throw associated with it. I am probably just going to take Firebolt, which seems weird, but it's just for destroying doors. As for spells, we want to absolutely take Enhanced Leap. Getting this running before we start combat, combined with Athlete, we have pretty incredible mobility on a bonus action. For the other one, you're going to want to take Shield. You're only going to have 2 spell slots, it's only 2 uses per day, but honestly, 2 uses of Shield a day can be pretty good. As for subclass, we're going to go Draconic Bloodline, and we're specifically going to go Silver. And the reason for that, by picking the Silver Dragonborn, the other skill that we got is another spell, specifically Featherfall. So now you have access to Featherfall and Enhanced Leap, which you can set up before combat. And Featherfall really just allows you to go down from high places. This way you have huge battlefield mobility with this character. And since we're generally not going to have anything better to do with our bonus action outside of the potential Great Weapon Master extra attack, it's really nice if you can get these off ahead of time just to make sure you can get anywhere you need to be. And as you might expect from this point on, we're just going to keep going fighter. So we get another superiority die at 7, which is great. You can pick up a few more. I like disarming attack at this point. There's a lot of good options. I do tend to pick up precision attack myself just in case I really want to try to make a hit count. We get to level 8, we get yet another feat. This is going to be our last feat, as fighters don't get one at level 10 and we've missed out on level 12. So I use this to pick up an ASI, and I'll increase my strength. If you've been doing dexterity, increase your dexterity to 20. Level 9, we get Indomitable, which is actually pretty nice. Fail a saving throw and you can re-roll it for something that's supposed to be a Mage Slayer. That's very fun. We get improved combat superiority, so those superiority dice go up to a D10. That means we'll be doing even more damage with these. And we get 2 more strikes. And you're really getting into personal preference here. Riposte can be really good in terms of just doing more damage. I do sometimes feel like it's not the best use of a superiority die, but if you're in a party with a bard and you're getting 3 short rests, maybe go for it. I'm going to take pushing attack, and actually I am going to take riposte. I do tend to end up taking it. And here we are, our capstone, 11 fighter, level 12 total. We get that 3rd attack, making every round even better and action surge that much sweeter. Alright, so that particularly nasty combo I was talking about is a combination between trip attack and menacing attack. Menacing attack frightens them, giving them disadvantage, and they cannot move. Trip attack knocks them prone, which means they need to spend half of their movement to stand back up. What happens if you're prone and you don't have any movement to get back up? Well, you're stuck on the ground. That said, there is a bit of a strange interaction with it. So, for whatever reason, the melee version of Trip Attack specifically applies prone for 1 turn. You'll see that this says the same thing on ranged, but the truth is the ranged one doesn't apply it for only 1 turn. So let's show an example here. If I go up to this guy and I use my melee Trip Attack, save, that's alright. Knock him on the ground. Now let's use a menacing attack. He's frightened and prone, but you'll notice that the prone status has 1 turn on it. So let's take a step back, let's wait, and we'll watch what happens. So you'll see he actually stands back up, even though he's still frightened. We don't want that. Alright, so let's take another shot at this. This time, we're going to start off with our ranged Trip Attack. Same idea, should do the same thing. This time, however, if you look at the prone status, you'll notice there's not a 1-turn counter on it. They're just prone. So we'll walk up to this guy, we'll take out our menacing attack, give him a bonk. Oh shoot. Time to reload. So we'll move on next to use menacing attack. And I'll say menacing attack, get up there and use it melee if you can. You're going to have great weapon master and advantage because they're knocked down. Say they're staying away and you couldn't make it to them, ranged attack works too. Saved. Thankfully we have an extra attack. Frightened. Alright. Frightened for 2 turns, knocked prone. Let's see what happens. We're going to end our turn. Absolutely nothing out of them. Still have a turn of frightened. Let's end our turn one more time. That is 2 full turns missed. Pretty good. And that's kind of the combo. You can take somebody out of a combat for 2 turns doing this, or just shut them down enough that you can beat on them for that long. It's pretty good. Alright, so let's talk specifically about the mage slaying part of this, because we certainly didn't take the feat. One of the best parts about the Battlemaster fighter is how easy it is for them to break concentration. Let's say we have a mage and it's concentrating on something like haste. Pretty powerful, something you definitely want to shut down. Let's hop into turn-based mode here. We'll hop over to our Battlemaster fighter, and we're going to go ahead and use Trip Attack. They made the save. Other beauty, we have multiple attacks as a fighter. And even early on when you don't have 3 attacks, you have Action Surge. 23. Do not react. They're knocked down. Now, their concentration is immediately broken as soon as they're knocked prone. Huge. But even if you aren't going for the combo of prone with a ranged weapon into menacing strike to shut them down for a couple turns, just being able to immediately cancel concentration on somebody is pretty good. Now, let's talk a little bit about mobility as well. So one of the things we had picked up by taking that 1-level Sorcerer dip was Enhanced Leap and Featherfall. Setting those up on your turn on yourself before combat really adds to your mobility. Now, I'm not going to say it necessarily competes with a Misty Step in all ways. There are crafty angles you can get through with a Misty Step that you won't be able to do with Jump. That being said, let's take Lae'zel here. She's in melee range with their fighter, not thrilled about it. They're going to Misty Step the maximum distance they can. They're going to just try to beeline it away. Let's say they run as their max movement speed as well. They're about right here at the edge. If we can make it to these boards, we've made it to them. Just for the sake of seeing how far it is, let's go ahead and also have Lae'zel dash. Have her run her maximum distance right over here. Swapping to our Battlemaster fighter, let's see about jumping. Well, in a single bound without moving, we can make it about the distance of their max movement speed plus Misty Step. Of course, the other thing to note, we've only used up half of our movement speed. So we can make it up to them. Now, I will say, I've got Long Strider on. It's not quite up to them as much if you don't. However, the benefit of having high dexterity and strength on this character is even via ranged, you can be very effective. But just to show off, the mobility is very comparable to a caster in a lot of ways. And the benefit is yours just costs you a bonus action and no real resources, provided you remember to cast Featherfall and Enhanced Leap. So pretty good. Alright, so carrying on with reactions. If you have not fought a particularly powerful wizard with minions in Act 3, close your eyes. I won't say anything that's a spoiler. I'll tell you when to open them again. Otherwise, let's take a look. This particular spellcaster has a very nasty reaction available to them. Basically, when they take damage, they can retaliate, and it'll be a bad time. Let's see what that looks like. Ouch. Well, that was most of her health. What could we do otherwise, though? Alright, so let's say we take round 2 of this. Except this time, we're going to use Trip Attack. Well, no reaction for you. So, you can see how that might be advantageous. If you've had your eyes closed, you can open them again. And lastly, we'll get into items. Starting in the head slot, early on the Grim Skull Helm is great, can't land crits against you, resistance to fire, and Hunter Mark isn't bad to throw up on a target that's going to last for a while. Next up, we're looking at the Flawed Helldusk Helm. This is nice and pairs in thematically with a +2 bonus to your saving throws against spells, and a Constitution +1 as well. Lastly, our late game helm is the Helm of Baldur. Similarly, gives you a +1 to saving throws as well as your armor class. You can't be crit, you can't be stunned, and you gain 2 hit points at the beginning of every turn. Very good helmet. Moving into weapons, early on, the Susser Greatsword is really thematically fitting as it gives you a chance to silence on hit, and it's a +1 item. Further on in the Githyanki Kresh, you can pick up the Unseen Menace, which is a +1 pike, and up until you miss an attack with it, it's going to give you advantage. So early on, making use of Great Weapon Master, this really increases your chance to hit. Beyond that, it also crits on 19. Next up, we're looking at the Halberd of Vigilance. You can get this in Act 2. It's a +2 weapon with an extra d4 of force damage. Gives a bonus to initiative, advantage on perception checks, and advantage on your opportunity attacks as well. Honorable mention to the Drake Throat Glaive. It's good in its own right, but really we're here to talk about Draconic Elemental Weapon, which if you drop one of your items on the ground, you can cast this ability on it to give that item a +1 and a d4 of elemental damage until your next long rest, which is very, very nice. Moving to your late game item, Baldurin's Giant Slayer is most likely the one you're going to be using. It's very good. Double the damage from your strength modifier, advantage on attack rolls against large, huge, or gargantuan creatures. Lets you use giant form, which is basically an improved enlarge every short rest. Very solid sword. Also worth mentioning, Silver Sword of the Astral Plane. I really like this one. It feels very thematically appropriate, and it does give you some great defensive benefits, but I will note that those can be shored up pretty easily with an amulet later too. So when wielded by Githyanki, an extra d6 psychic damage, also advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, resistance to psychic damage, and cannot be charmed. Definitely some strong defenses. Moving on to ranged weapons, early on we can pick up the Titan String Bow, which, to be honest, you could probably use for the entire game. It's very strong. You're going to have high strength and dexterity, so to be in a good place to make use of its bonus. Herald is another nice ranged option you can get early. Gives them a saving throw when you deal damage to possibly bane them, which is great. A baned target is going to have a d4 penalty to their saving throws, making it more likely that your maneuvers succeed. The Hellrider Longbow. This could be considered one of your best in slots, although there's better offensive options. The fact that this gives you a +3 to initiative, combined with your high dexterity, gives you a very good chance of going first in combat. And if there's one thing better than instantly breaking concentration with trip attack, it's putting them into that trip attack, menacing attack, arm hold before they even get a turn. Also gives you advantage on perception checks, and once per turn, a creature hit by this weapon will possibly be affected by Fairy Fire. Next up, the Dead Shot, also in there for possibly best in slot, reduces the number you need to get a critical by 1, and in terms of landing attacks, has Keen Attack, which doubles your proficiency bonus with ranged attack rolls unless they have disadvantage. So unless you have disadvantage, this is a very accurate bow. Next up, we have the Gaunter Mail, +3, so that's the only +3 bow. Has some other bonuses, can send out a guiding bolt when you shoot, it glows, it can give you a haste that when broken does not give you the lethargic condition, make you lose a turn, also very strong. Getting into armor, early on the Adamantine Splint Mail is probably what you want to get. It's very strong defensively, reduces damage by 2, inflicts reeling on enemies that attack you, you can't be crit. If you can't get your hands on that, another good piece in early Act 2 is the Flawed Helldusk armor, also very defensive, can retaliate with a little bit of fire damage when you're hit. Further into Act 3, the armor you probably want to be using, the Armor of Persistence. All incoming damage reduced by 2, and you have resistance and Blade Ward. It is incredible for your saving throws, it's incredible for when you do get hit. Another alternative, in case you can't get that, Helldusk armor is also very, very strong. You can inflict burning on people, resistance to fire. It's also very, very good. Moving into cloaks, the classic Cloak of Protection fits well. +1 armor class, +1 saving throw, makes you very strong defensively. Elemental Absorption is also a great option. It's only once per short rest, but on enemies that have a really big attack that does a lot of elemental damage, this can really help out. The Cloak of Displacement, which might be my personal favorite. Until you take damage, enemies have disadvantage to attack you. I mean, I know it doesn't help against saving throws and everything, but it's just so strong. Moving into gloves, early game, Gloves of the Growling Underdog can give you advantage when you're surrounded by 2 or more foes. That's really nice. Further into Act 1, what you'll be wearing for the entire game, if you're going the strength route, no potions, is the Gloves of Dexterity. And it's great. I mean, setting your Dexterity to 18 and +1 to attack rolls is always good. It's not a bad item to have in that slot. Alternatively, if you are doing the route of drinking potions, Flawed Helldusk gloves are very nice. Extra 1d4 fire damage, possibly bleeding. Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength are also an option if you've been going dexterity routes but don't want to do the potions constantly. This is very late game, but it is an option. The actual Helldusk gloves, these are great. It's not listed on here, but this also does give a +1 bonus to your attack rolls. Also d6 fire damage, possible inflict bleeding. Very nice. And my personal favorite for this build, because it's what we're leaning into, the Gauntlets of the War Master. Targets have disadvantage on saving throws against your maneuvers. Also +1 on attack rolls. Very, very good. When you get these, and you can get these very early into Act 3, it's really hard for a lot of enemies to resist your Battle Master maneuvers, and you become very, very reliable at taking people out. Moving on to boots, we can get the Swearsea boots. These increase your jumping distance. That's nice for us. Obviously, the Disintegrating Nightwalkers are good on anybody. You can't be enwebbed, entangled, and snared, can't slip in grease or ice, and you get Misty Step. Fantastic for the whole game. The Evasive Shoes are a great alternative for the +1 armor class. Boots of Persistent late game might be my personal favorite. You get Permanent Long Strider, which I recognize may not mean much. You can just cast it on everybody. But the freedom of movement is great. Speed is not going to be reduced by difficult terrain. You cannot be paralyzed. You cannot be restrained. Really prevents a lot of these very nasty abilities from affecting you. Moving on to amulets, we have the Amulet of Misty Step. Gives you Misty Step once per short rest, always good. Broodmother's Revenge can be a good option if you want to do a little more damage, a d6 of poison, and once you get the Baldur Helm, this will just automatically be applied to yourself when that heals you at the start of your turn. Amulet of the Harpers is great. Advantage on wisdom throws is exactly what you want for an anti-mage type of character, and getting an access to another use of shield is never bad. Fey Semblance Amulet might be kind of the Mage Slayer amulet. Advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. Like, those are the things you're scared of, generally speaking, and having advantage, wonderful. Getting into rings, we can start with Crusher's Ring. Extra 3 meters of movement is never bad. Ring of Protection is, of course, classic. Armor class +1, saving throw +1, probably best in slot. Whispering Promise is a very nice option, particularly once you have the Helm of Baldurin. When you heal a creature, which also includes that self-heal, you essentially get Bless on yourself. Very nice for offense and defense. Eversight Ring is also very good, so you can't be blinded. That's another one of the things that can kind of shut you down. And then lastly, if you're not using the Boots of Persistent, the Ring of Free Action can also be very good. It keeps you from being afflicted by paralyzed or restrained. And with that, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. Anything you think I missed or anything you'd like to see in the future, let me know. Thanks for watching.